G'day everyone, Brian here from the Japanese Whisky Review, and also the future Brian the Travel Fanatic channel, which I'll also throw this up on. So I'm at Bar by 61Monarchy. I'm here with Chris Chai.
Hi.
That's
nice
correct.
to meet you all.
Nice to meet Chris. First time meeting Chris here.
Yes.
And I'm going to do a quick Q&A with Chris. And if you've got anything else to add, Chris, just chuck it in there. So,
Okay, sure.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to go, tell me a bit about yourself. What's your background? Did you grow up in Kuala Lumpur?
I'm actually from this small town a little bit further up north. It's called Kampai in Perak. Okay, but I grew up here. Most of my life I spent in Kuala Lumpur, right? I joined the bar industry about almost 8 years ago. And I only have been together with one bar, which is 61Monarchy. So from the get-go, I was always focused on whiskies. And on top of that, just other spirits as well. So that has always been something I enjoyed. Yeah.
So there's probably a couple of questions that I've got written down here that Chris is going to answer before I even get to the questions. So you mentioned 7 years in the bar industry, but what inspired you to get into this industry?
Well, I wouldn't really say inspiration. It's more of a series of coincidence.
Okay.
Under the company, we actually have a cafes as well. It's called the Good Batch. I actually joined the cafe team first, and when Monarchy was opening, the owner Andrew, so he's one of the co-founder for 61Monarchy. He offered me a chance to try out the bar. That comes also from, prior to that I was in the hotel industry. I was a butler before that, and he envisioned something a little bit more service orientated kind of bar, loungy feel to it. So he got me on board. So that's the beginning.
So what is your actual role here? Is it just in the new bar, or do you have something to do with the original 61Monarchy?
So in 61Monarchy, currently I still oversee some of the back end of the operation. But day-to-day operation, I have a very good team there, well versed with the product that's running the show. I'm currently based here now in Bar by 61M, which is well, I run most of the day-to-day business, front end, and I also have a colleague with me. So 2-person, small bar. Yeah, that's it.
So I've probably mentioned 100 times that I've been to Kuala Lumpur 14 times. Now, a lot of the time I'm with family and friends, so I don't get to bolt around bars all the time. So we'd normally be based in Bukit Bintang, which is quite convenient for international tourists, just the way it is, and I've been to the Whiskey bar before. So, how long has the original 61Monarchy been open?
Okay, so I'm there since the first day, so I can tell you, started on December 2015, so that's the 7 years. So 7 years complete last year. So running into its 8th year of operation this year now.
I don't know how I've missed it, folks. Again, I think it's a bit of the fact that I'm often here with family and friends, and they're not all whiskey fanatics. And I've got to kind of compromise sometimes where I travel to, but not be able to just go and sit there and drink whiskey for 4 hours and write tasting notes, stuff like that. And can you give me an idea, Chris, excuse me, how many whiskies are there at the original 61Monarchy? How many would you think would be on the shelf?
You are looking at plus minus around 400 unique labels of whiskies. And one thing about Monarchy is that it has always been set up as a bar for people to try, which is when we started something quite new in Malaysia, so people can't really understand why would you open a bottle of, let's say, a Port Ellen, right, to sell it by the glass. So the idea has always been we want people to try different things. So currently we have about 400 different whiskies, and every single one of them you can order by the glass.
Okay, good. Because I noticed I've seen some bars kind of exclusively do just buy a bottle and have the glass, which can be a bit tough if you want to try something unique. They can be expensive, but it can be a bit tough. So, for non-whiskey drinkers, if they're at the original bar or here, what else can they have? Like beer, wine, cocktails? Well, let's look at the original bar and here, because I think there might be a bit of a different setup.
So slightly different, but generally they are the same. In a sense of the offering, you do have other spirits as well. Of course, gin and some vintage rums, a little bit of a brandy, both cognac, a bit of Armagnac. You also have, of course, a good selection of cocktails. Both bars focus heavily on classic cocktails. They do have a handful of signatures cocktails as well. Like currently for 61Monarchy, we have a menu that focuses a bit on coffee and tea kind of theme. So
Yeah.
we do tea infused spirits, coffee infused spirits or liqueur, and use it in a cocktail.
Yeah.
A bit of craft beer, because in Malaysia beers tend to be a very lovely thing, you know, with our hot weather.
Yeah,
so a bit
absolutely.
of craft beer, a bit of ales here and there.
Yeah,
So that's that.
that's good. So, if you're a whiskey drinker and you come in with a partner or friends, they can enjoy stuff as well. So
Yes.
it's not just whiskey, even though I'm whiskey focused, there's plenty of other stuff that your friends can enjoy when they're here as well. So, what would you say is the main differences? Because I noticed, I think we chatted or we sent emails, and there was an intimation that this bar had a bit more of an international whiskey flavour. Is that correct than the other bar, or is it a little bit more like Japanese, sort of that sort of thing, where the other's more Scotch orientated, or is that wrong? What's the main difference?
So for 61 Monarchy, because it's our very first whiskey bar, it tends to be very Scotch orientated.
Yeah.
In terms of the selection, and it's a lot bigger because of the space.
Yeah.
The shelf space and everything. So selection wise, a lot wider, and there is a very heavy focus on Scotch and a more curated selection of independent bottlings.
Yeah.
Right. For here, because we are actually partner with Sushi Kazu, which is a well-established Japanese omakase restaurant. So we wanted to bring in a little bit more of that Japanese-inspired, Japanese flavor to it. So a little bit more of Japanese spirits, especially in terms of gin as well as the Japanese whiskies.
Yeah. Okay. And I've taken a couple of photos. We just kind of got to the bar, but about how many Japanese whiskies do you think here? I'm looking at maybe 30 or something, but I will add that when I'm talking about that, they're just not your bog standard stuff. Okay, so some of the more interesting newer distilleries that you represent. So you've got your Suntory and your Nikka here, but what sort of other newer stuff from newer Japanese distilleries do you have?
Well, we were very lucky. Andrew, which is the owner, managed to get himself a couple of bottles of whiskies from Kanosuke, a distillery that was opened in 2017, right, if I remember correctly. So we have the first 3 releases from them, the 2021 2 release and 2022. We also have a little bit from Shizuoka as well. And some unique one, which is a Japanese blended whiskey, Kamiki, which is one of the whiskey that is known for Japanese cedar wood finish. So quite unusual on that one. And a little bit here and there as well.
Yeah, I know. I noticed a couple of Chichibu here as well.
Yes.
But especially if you're an enthusiast, there's plenty that's going to really hit the palate. Okay. Plus, if you're new, from the look of it, plenty to start with. Now, my partner's over there at the bar. She's having some highballs, so I noticed that you've got is it a happy hour special on the highballs? I think it was three for 60 or something.
3 for 60.
I think that's about $14 US. I know we worked it out. It was about 20 Australian dollars, or about 14 US for 3 highballs, which is pretty good value. I can tell you that. So let's move on. Are you a whiskey drinker yourself?
Of course, why not?
I know it's the kind of thing, and I've got to watch. I might have to backtrack and come backwards and forwards. Do you have a favourite whiskey? Which is a terrible question when you've got hundreds of whiskies.
Yes.
So maybe a favourite whiskey distillery, and I don't just mean Japanese. If you're talking about Scottish or Irish, whatever. Do you have one that kind of floats your boat? Their style, their house style is more your preference, or even say an area.
Area. I'm not very particular about area. Most whiskey I do enjoy. I like varieties. I like to try different things. But one that's very close to me, close to my heart, has always been Ardbeg.
Okay.
The big smoky monsters from Islay. So I always love that. And I love their special releases, the Fiala releases, the community releases. In fact, we were very lucky because my boss Andrew, he also loved that brand a lot. So 61 Monarchy, we actually have currently about 25 different releases of Ardbeg. So that has always been one of my go-to.
Well, and I've got to say, and I mentioned this on the video over here. When I think Kuala Lumpur, when you look, I don't really think whiskey bars. But yeah, there's definitely there's going to be something here, either the original 61 Monarchy or here, that's going to float your boat. There's no doubt about it. Okay, because there's so many big whiskey bars in Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, etc., Taiwan. But definitely you're going to enjoy coming here and trying these bars. So, what would be the rarest whiskey you think you've got here?
Rarest that we got here.
Let's just talk about this bar.
This particular one we have bottling that's actually from a bar in Singapore, the Old Alliance.
I've
Have you been
spent time at the Old Alliance and spent some good times with Emmanuel Dron there.
Yes.
So yeah, they do a lot of their own independent bottlings there. So let's talk about that Old Alliance bottling.
We actually got two from them recently, and I believe both of them are equally as rare. One of it is Little Mill, and the other one is Port Ellen. So those are the two rarer ones we have.
Okay, I won't talk about cost. I think you sent me a menu, so I couldn't find it, but I'll get it again if I can't find it again. But there's a menu for both bars, which gives you the pricing and everything else on it as well. So I'll give you those as well. But it's good. The Old Alliance is about an hour's flight away from here.
This is about an hour flight from here.
9 hours flight from here. Okay, so if you were a beginner into whiskey, a beginner came here and were looking, what would you recommend to someone new that was kind of, or do you do tasting flights?
Of course, So we do tasting flights, and one of the brand, and this is one of the brand personally I've worked with, it's called Douglas Lane. I actually love their regional malts, and I always find them a good representation for the different style of whiskey in Scotland. So that's one of the things I will always recommend as a tasting flight. So that's one that we still do in 61 Monarchy. For this one, if you want something easy to start the night,
something easy.
Akashi. Lovely Japanese whiskey. So that's something light, something not too intense. Just prepare your palate to go for something a bit more unusual.
Okay, so moving away from the Scotch, because they got some really good rums here as well. So if you like rums, and I see some of them here, some of the bottlers I've got at home as well. But do you? So rum. Okay, look, I've got my thing. Whiskey's at the top of the tree, and I think there's rum, and I really like tequila and mezcal, for instance. So, do you have a favourite spirit outside of whiskey, for instance?
Well, I'm a big fan
Just on a personal
of
level.
any spirits that's aged, because I love to see that interaction between the base spirit and how the master distiller or master blender want to do with the cask. What's the nurturing process is. So vintages rums, brandies, Armagnac, Cognac, Calvados, I love those. Any añejos tequila, añejos mezcal, those are lovely. You can really taste that complexity. But rum, brandy, then your aged agave spirits.
Okay. So, are you here most nights, Chris, or are you kind of flipping between the two?
Currently, I'm here most night. I do occasionally pop by in 61 Monarchy, just to see and to meet up with some regulars, some old friends, things like that.
Okay, so if you're ever in town, no excuses now, whiskey drinkers. Okay. There's a couple of games in town, and these are definitely one of them. Choose your poison or visit both. Okay, and if you see Chris, come and say hello. He knows, obviously, after 7 years, knows a lot about spirits and whiskey, and that definitely some recommendations. So thanks very much, Chris.
Thanks, mate.
And thanks, guys, for watching. Really enjoyed it. Time to try a couple of whiskies. Bye bye.
Goodbye.